The 1965 United States 1-cent coin, commonly called the Lincoln cent, is part of one of the most historically significant coin series in American numismatics. It features on its obverse the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by sculptor Victor David Brenner, whose design first appeared in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. By 1965, this portrait had already become an enduring national symbol of leadership, unity, and the preservation of the Union during the Civil War. The obverse inscriptions include, "In God We Trust," a motto first placed on U.S. coins during the Civil War and later mandated on all currency, representing national faith and identity. "Liberty," reflecting the fundamental principle on which the nation was founded, and the date 1965, marking a transitional era for American coinage. Notably, 1965 was a year in which the U.S. Mint faced a major coin shortage, resulting in changes to minting practices. During 1965 to 1967, the Mint removed mint marks from coins to discourage collectors from hoarding specific issues, which means the 1965 cent, like all cents from those 3 years, has no mint mark, even though it was produced primarily at the Philadelphia Mint. On the reverse, the coin displays the iconic Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 for the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth and crafted by Frank Gasparo. It shows the entire memorial front, with careful architectural detail, and even includes a minuscule representation of the statue of Lincoln inside the building, an artistic feature unique among circulating U.S. coins. Surrounding the design are inscriptions such as United States of America and the motto, E pluribus unum, a Latin phrase meaning, out of many one, symbolizing the unity of the states forming a single nation. The denomination 1 cent appears prominently below the memorial. The 1965 cent is composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, continuing the traditional bronze alloy used for most Lincoln cents from 1909 until the composition change in the early 1980s. While billions of these coins were minted, making them common in circulation, they represent an important moment in American monetary history due to the coinage shortage and the Mint's temporary policy changes. Today, although most 1965 cents have low monetary value, they remain collected for their historical significance, their connection to Abraham Lincoln, and their place within the long-running evolution of U.S. coinage, national mottos, and symbolic expressions of American identity. Next up. The 1962 United States 1-cent coin, commonly known as the Lincoln cent, is part of one of America's longest-running coin series and carries with it a rich blend of historical symbolism, national identity, and mid-20th century minting practices. The D mint mark below the date signifies its production at the Denver Mint, which in 1962 struck well over 1 billion Lincoln cents, making that year's Denver issue one of the most plentiful of the early 1960s. The obverse front of the coin features the enduring portrait of Abraham Lincoln, originally designed by sculptor Victor David Brenner in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. By 1962, Brenner's portrait had become an iconic fixture on U.S. currency, symbolizing not only Lincoln's leadership during the Civil War, but the nation's continuing commitment to unity, dignity, and democratic ideals. Surrounding the portrait are inscriptions that embody core American values. "In God We Trust," a motto historically rooted in the Civil War era and officially required on all U.S. coinage beginning in the mid-20th century. "Liberty," representing the foundational principle of personal and national freedom, and the date 1962, marking a period of economic growth and cultural transformation in America. The reverse back of the 1962 cent displays the wheat ears reverse, featuring 2 stylized wheat stalks curved inward along the sides, a design by Brenner that appeared from 1909 until 1958. Above the central inscription 1 cent, which identifies the denomination, stands United States of America, and above that is the time-honored motto, E pluribus unum, Latin for out of many one, expressing the unity of the states and the American people. Because the Lincoln Memorial reverse did not begin until 1959, the 1962 cent belongs to the final decade of the wheat ears design era, making it part of a historically cherished subset of the series, even though most examples are common. The coin is composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, known as the classic bronze alloy that the mint used for most Lincoln cents from 1909 through 1982, giving the coins their warm, reddish-brown appearance and their characteristic durability. Although billions were minted and most circulated examples hold minimal monetary value today, high-grade, uncirculated, and proof-like pieces are sought by collectors for their luster, sharp detail, and representation of early 1960s minting quality. More than just a small copper coin, the 1962 Lincoln cent is a compact expression of American history and identity, carrying forward the nation's mottos, honoring one of its greatest presidents, and preserving the aesthetic and symbolic traditions that have shaped U.S. coinage for over a century. Next top. The 1967 United States 1-cent coin, commonly called the Lincoln cent or penny, is a copper coin minted during a historically important transition period in U.S. coinage. Although it resembles other Lincoln cents of the 1960s, the 1967 issue is unique because it was produced during years in which the United States Mint temporarily removed mint marks in an attempt to discourage coin collecting and ease a circulating coin shortage. As a result, all 1967 pennies, whether struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, carry no mint mark, making them visually identical regardless of origin. The obverse of the coin features the long-standing portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909 to honor the centennial of Lincoln's birth. Above Lincoln's head appears the national motto, "In God We Trust," a phrase first required on U.S. coins by law in the 19th century and used on the cent since 1909. To the left of Lincoln is the word liberty, symbolizing the foundation of American democratic ideals, while the year 1967 appears to the right. The reverse of the coin displays Frank Gasparo's depiction of the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to commemorate Lincoln's 150th birthday. This design replaced Brenner's earlier wheat year reverse. Centered above the memorial is United States of America, beneath which appears the traditional motto, E pluribus unum, Latin for out of many one, reflecting the unity of the states forming one nation. Below the memorial sits the denomination 1 cent. The 1967 cent is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, a composition used for most pennies from 1864 until 1982, giving it its distinctive reddish-brown appearance that darkens with age. Even though more than 3 billion of these cents were minted, making them common in circulation and generally low in monetary value, they remain historically interesting because they belong to the series of 1965 to 1967 special mint set years, in which the mint produced no proof sets and attempted to stabilize coin supply. Many 1967 cents found today show heavy wear from decades of circulation, though well-preserved examples, especially those graded extremely high, can be of interest to collectors. Symbolically, the coin embodies key American mottos, national identity, and historical transitions in minting practices, making even an ordinary 1967 cent a compact snapshot of U.S. history and numismatic evolution. Next top. The 1969 United States 1-cent coin, commonly called the Lincoln cent or penny, is a small copper coin that represents far more than its face value because it captures an entire era of American history, minting practices, political changes, design traditions, and national symbolism through every element stamped onto its surfaces. The obverse of the 1969 cent carries the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909 for the centennial of Lincoln's birth and retained for decades due to its cultural power and immediate recognizability, and above Lincoln appears the national motto, "In God We Trust," a phrase legally mandated on U.S. coinage and adopted to express the country's spiritual heritage while reinforcing the American identity during times of national uncertainty, especially significant in the late 1960s when the nation was dealing with political tension, the Vietnam War, social movements, and cultural transformation. To the left of Lincoln is the word liberty, symbolizing the foundational American ideal emphasized by the civil rights movement and deeply resonant with Lincoln's historical role in emancipation. And to the right of the portrait sits the four-digit date 1969, which appears on coins produced at 3 different mint facilities that year: the Philadelphia Mint, with no mint mark, the Denver Mint, marked D, and the San Francisco Mint, marked S, each mint contributing millions of coins, but with the San Francisco business strike cents being notably scarcer. The reverse of the 1969 cent features Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial design, introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, replacing the earlier wheat ears reverse and becoming one of the most recognized numismatic images of the 20th century. Above the memorial arches the inscription, United States of America, representing federal unity, and directly beneath it appears the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, out of many one, highlighting the merging of distinct states into a single national identity and reinforcing the conceptual unity of the republic during a period of social division. Below the memorial, centered in large lettering, is the denomination 1 cent, intentionally spelled out so that the coin's identity would not be confused with foreign currency. Compositionally, the 1969 cent is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, a material formula used since 1864, except for 1943 steel cents, and prized for durability, electrical conductivity, and resistance to corrosion, giving the penny its characteristic deep red color when mint fresh and its chocolate brown appearance after circulation. The 1969 cents are historically important because they exist within a period of heavy coin production due to nationwide demand, and the mint produced billions of cents to maintain circulation. Yet they remain notable in numismatic circles for one of the most famous and valuable U.S. coin errors, the 1969 S. Doubled die obverse, an extreme variety created by a misaligned hubbing process that resulted in dramatic doubling on the words Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date 1969, making genuine examples worth tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, though countless counterfeits exist and have caused widespread confusion. Legitimate 1969 S doubled dies show extremely bold, clean, separated doubling that cannot be easily mimicked, and collectors consider them among the big four S doubled die varieties, along with the 1955, 1972, and 1995 double die cents. Aside from major varieties, ordinary 1969 cents remain plentiful, though high-grade, uncirculated examples with bright original red coloration are significantly harder to find because copper oxidizes and darkens over time. Coins graded fully red RD by professional services such as PCGS or NGC can carry meaningful premiums, especially for the Denver and San Francisco issues, because the preservation of original red copper for more than half a century is difficult. The 1969 cent also reflects the technological limitations and improvements of mid-20th century U.S. mint practices, such as manual die preparation, early hydraulic presses, and the transitional shift toward more automated quality control systems that would emerge more fully in the 1970s. Politically, the year 1969 marked the beginning of the Nixon administration, and the coin produced in this period circulated among Americans during major historical events, from the Apollo 11 moon landing, meaning that many 1969 cents literally passed through the pockets of citizens during humanity's first steps on the moon, to the social adjustments following the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy in 1968. The coin therefore exists not merely as a numismatic object, but as an artifact of lived American history, embodying the economic conditions, artistic sensibilities, and national values of its time. The reverse's Lincoln Memorial design is particularly next top. The 1971 United States Lincoln Memorial cent is a copper coin struck at the Denver Mint during a transitional period in American coinage, representing a continuation of the familiar Lincoln cent design introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. On the obverse, the coin features the classic right-facing portrait of Lincoln created by sculptor Victor David Brenner, the same design that had defined the penny for more than 6 decades by 1971. Above Lincoln's portrait appears the national motto, "In God We Trust," an inscription that has been standard on U.S. coinage since the 1950s, but traces its origins to Civil War-era sentiments. To the left of Lincoln is the word liberty, reaffirming the American ideal that the nation was founded upon, while to the right, just below the shoulder truncation, is the year 1971 accompanied by the D mint mark, indicating that the coin was produced at the Denver Mint in Colorado. More than 2.9 billion of these cents were struck at Denver in 1971, making it one of the higher mintage dates of the Lincoln Memorial series, which means it is generally common in circulation, though pristine, uncirculated examples, especially those exhibiting full sharp strikes, minimal contact marks, and strong original luster, are more collectible and can be worth a premium to numismatists. The reverse of the coin displays the Lincoln Memorial, a structure completed in 1922 to commemorate the legacy of the 16th U.S. president. This reverse was introduced in 1959 to replace the earlier wheat ears design and was intended to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Architect Frank Asparo designed this reverse, notable for the tiny depiction of the Lincoln statue visible between the central columns, making the Lincoln cent unique as one of the few U.S. coins to display the same individual on both sides. Surrounding the image of the memorial is the inscription, United States of America, stretching across the top rim, while the motto, E pluribus unum, out of many one, appears just above the memorial itself, a phrase that signifies the unity of the states forming a single nation. At the bottom rim sits the denomination 1 cent, a clear and bold declaration of the coin's face value. The 1971 D cent was minted during the final years in which pennies were composed mostly of bronze, an alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, giving the coin its distinct reddish-brown coloration and contributing to its long-lasting durability. Because copper prices fluctuated throughout the 1970s, the 1971 D cent reflects an era before the 1982 composition change, when the United States Mint shifted to primarily zinc planchets coated in copper to reduce production costs. Collectors today examine 1971 D cents for features such as strike quality, die wear, planchet defects, and overall eye appeal. Though most examples are standard, a small number exhibit variations in toning, die polishing, slight misalignments, or minor die chips, all of which may interest specialists who study the subtleties of the Lincoln cent series. While the 1971 D is not rare, its historical context, bridging Lincoln-themed design continuity, mid-20th century minting technologies, and the broader numismatic story of America's smallest denomination coin, makes it a meaningful piece of everyday U.S. history, one that has passed through millions of hands and continues to circulate more than half a century after its creation. Even today, these cents serve not only as functional currency, but as miniature artifacts, each bearing national symbols, mottos, and design details that collectively represent the enduring legacy of Abraham Lincoln and the minting traditions of the United States. Next up. The 1975 United States Lincoln Memorial Cent is a bronze 1 cent piece that represents one of the later issues of the classic Memorial Reverse Lincoln Cent series, a design lineage that began in 1959 and continued until 2008. The obverse of the 1975 cent features the enduring portrait of Abraham Lincoln created by the sculptor Victor David Brenner, a design first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This portrait shows Lincoln facing to the right, the lines of his hair and beard rendered in fine detail, and his expression carrying the calm seriousness that made his image such a powerful national icon. Arched across the top rim is the motto, "In God We Trust," which has appeared on the Lincoln cent since its earliest years and reflects the long tradition of national reliance on divine guidance, a theme originally popularized during the Civil War and officially incorporated into U.S. coinage in later decades. To the left of Lincoln appears the word liberty, a simple but potent reminder of the philosophical foundation upon which the country was built. To the right of the portrait sits the date 1975, a year positioned in the midst of significant political, economic, and cultural change in the United States. Although no mint mark appears on the example described by your text, this indicates the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which at that time produced coins without a mint mark as its standard practice. In 1975, the Philadelphia Mint struck well over 5 billion cents, making this date one of the highly common issues of the Memorial Cent period, Because of this immense mintage, most 1975 cents encountered today are ordinary, circulated pieces with modest collector value, unless preserved in exceptional uncirculated condition with strong luster, crisp details, and minimal contact marks. The reverse of the 1975 Lincoln cent showcases the Lincoln Memorial, a design by Frank Gasparo, introduced in 1959 to honor the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Gasparo's design depicts the neoclassical structure set in Washington, D.C., capturing the long colonnade of columns that form the memorial's iconic appearance. At the base of the interior central column recess, one can see a tiny rendering of the seated statue of Abraham Lincoln, making the Lincoln cent one of the rare coins on which the same individual appears on both sides. Crowning the reverse rim is the inscription, United States of America, while directly beneath it, in smaller lettering, sits the traditional motto, E pluribus unum, Latin for out of many one, symbolizing the unity of the states forming the nation. The denomination 1 cent appears boldly along the bottom rim of the reverse, ensuring clarity of value for anyone who handles the coin. Composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, the 1975 cent belongs to the final decade of predominantly bronze cents, a composition that would change in 1982 to copper-plated zinc due to sharply rising copper prices. The bronze composition gives the coin its warm reddish-brown or chocolate-brown hue, depending on circulation, oxidation, and storage conditions over the decades. Many 1975 cents show varying color designations used by numismatists: RD, red, RB, red-brown, and BN brown, with full red examples being scarcer and more desirable in the collector market. Though common as a date, the 1975 cent is still examined by specialists for subtle striking variations, including die deterioration, minor die cracks, filled die lettering, slightly off-center strikes, and light planchet flaws, all of which reflect the high-volume, minting environment of the 1970s. Collectors also appreciate the historical context surrounding the coin. The mid-1970s were a period marked by post-Watergate political shifts, inflation concerns, cultural transformation, and rapidly changing economic conditions, and the Lincoln cent remained a small but steady symbol of everyday American commerce. Each surviving 1975 cent is both a unit of currency and a miniature artifact of this era, carrying symbols and mottos that embody American national identity. In God we trust, liberty, E pluribus unum, alongside the enduring memorial to a president whose leadership during the Civil War safeguarded the nation itself. Though billions were minted, the simple combination of copper, art, history, and widespread use makes the 1975 cent a meaningful representative of the long and evolving story of American numismatics. Next top. The 1982 United States of America 1 cent coin, commonly known as the Lincoln penny, is one of the most historically significant modern coins because it represents the major transition year in which the U.S. Mint changed the physical composition of the cent, shifting from the long-used 95% copper alloy to a new zinc core with a thin copper plating, a change driven by rising copper prices that made traditional pennies too expensive to produce. As a result, 1982 contains multiple varieties: large date and small date, copper and zinc, making the year especially interesting to numismatists. The obverse front of the coin features Abraham Lincoln's profile, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, and above Lincoln's head appears the national motto, In God We Trust, a phrase that became standard on U.S. coins after the Civil War and was later adopted as the official national motto in 1956, symbolizing the country's historical belief in divine guidance. To Lincoln's left is the word liberty, a core American ideal representing freedom, democratic rights, and the guiding philosophy of the nation since its founding. Its presence on the penny affirms the principle that liberty belongs to the people and that elected leaders, like Lincoln, dedicated their lives to its preservation. The date 1982 appears to the right of Lincoln, and depending on mint location, it may include a small d mint mark for the Denver Mint or no mint mark for the Philadelphia Mint. The reverse, back, side of the 1982 penny continues the Lincoln Memorial design introduced in 1959 to mark Lincoln's 150th birthday. At the top is United States of America, beneath which stands the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one, symbolizing the unity of the states and the blending of diverse people into a single nation, a phrase adopted by the founders and used on American coinage since the late 18th century. The central image shows the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., and if examined closely, one can even see a tiny representation of the statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, making this design one of the few U.S. coins to depict the same person on both sides. Below the memorial is the denomination 1 cent, required by law to identify the coin's value. Because 1982 was a year of major composition change, both copper cents, weighing approximately 3.11 grams, and zinc cents, about 2.5 grams, exist, along with the large date and small date varieties, producing a total of 7 standard types plus several known min errors. This makes 1982 a popular year for collectors who enjoy searching for specific combinations or rare mistakes. The inscriptions "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and "E pluribus unum" together express the nation's identity, devotion to faith or moral principle, commitment to personal freedom, and unity across many states and cultures. For these reasons, the 1982 1-cent coin serves as both a piece of everyday currency and a compact historical document reflecting the economic changes of the early 1980s, the enduring ideals of the United States, and the long legacy of Abraham Lincoln, whose leadership and values remain honored in American coinage more than a century after his presidency. Next top. The 1994 United States 1-cent coin, widely recognized simply as the penny, is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. A typical 1994 penny features Victor David Brenner's classical portrait of Lincoln on the obverse front, a design that has remained largely unchanged for over a century and is iconic in U.S. currency. Along the upper rim of the obverse appears the national motto, "In God We Trust," officially adopted in 1956 and printed on all U.S. coinage as a reflection of national heritage and tradition. To Lincoln's left, the word "liberty" is displayed, echoing one of the most fundamental American principles and serving as a reminder of the nation's founding values. To Lincoln's right appears the date 1994, indicating the year of minting. Next to the date is often a small mint mark, either D for Denver or S for San Francisco, though Philadelphia minted cents from that era bear no mint mark. By 1994, the penny was made not of solid copper but of a zinc core coated with a thin layer of copper, a composition adopted in 1982 due to rising copper costs, though still copper-colored. These coins are far lighter and contain only about 2.5% copper. The reverse of the 1994 penny displays the Lincoln Memorial, which served as the reverse design from 1959 to 2008. Crafted by sculptor Frank Gasparo, the memorial design is notable because, if viewed closely, one can see the tiny engraved silhouette of Lincoln seated inside, making this coin one of the few in U.S. history to depict the same person on both sides. Above the memorial arch appears the Latin motto E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one, a phrase originating from the early years of the Republic and referring to the union formed from many states and many people. Surrounding the upper arch of the coin's reverse is the national title, United States of America, while the denomination 1 cent is written boldly below, marking the coin's value. Though billions of 1994 pennies were produced, making them extremely common in circulation, collectors may look for unusual features such as minting errors, double dies, off-center strikes, or exceptionally well-preserved examples graded by professional services. Most ordinary 1994 cents hold only face value, but high-grade or error versions may carry modest premiums. Together, the inscriptions United States of America, 1 cent, In God We Trust, Liberty, and E pluribus unum reflect national identity, historical legacy, and long-standing cultural symbolism, showing how even the smallest denomination coin carries layers of meaning rooted in over 2 centuries of American tradition. Next top. The 1999 United States 1 cent coin, commonly called the Lincoln penny, is a small but historically rich artifact of modern American coinage, minted in enormous numbers at the Denver Mint, whose identifying mint mark, D, appears just to the right of the date on the obverse. Like all Lincoln cents struck since mid-1982, the 1999 D penny is composed of a 97.5% zinc core coated in 2.5% copper, giving it the classic reddish-brown color associated with pennies while keeping production costs low in an era when pure copper became too expensive for mass coinage. The obverse of the coin features the enduring portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner for the 1909 cent, chosen to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth and famous for becoming the first U.S. circulating coin to depict a real historical person. Above Lincoln's head appears the national motto, "In God We Trust," which became standard on all U.S. coins due to legislation in the 1950s and symbolizes the nation's cultural and historical reliance on the idea of divine guidance. To Lincoln's left is the word liberty, one of the foundational principles upon which the United States was established, and a reminder of the values of personal freedom and democratic self-determination. The reverse of the 1999 D penny continues the Lincoln Memorial design created by Frank Gasparo and introduced in 1959 for the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This design, used until the 2008 issue, depicts the neoclassical memorial building in Washington, D.C., and astonishingly includes a tiny engraved representation of the seated statue of Lincoln visible between the central columns, making this series one of the only circulating coins where the same historical figure appears on both sides. The reverse is encircled at the top by United States of America, marking the issuing nation, while directly below the memorial is the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one, a phrase adopted by the early founders to symbolize the union formed from many states and diverse people. At the bottom appears 1 cent, the coin's face value, spelled out in full rather than using a number. Although the 1999 D penny was produced in high quantities, over 6 billion coins, making it extremely common and typically worth only 1 cent in circulated condition, collectors still examine them carefully for exceptional strike quality, full original luster, or noteworthy mint errors such as off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, or accidental double dies. While most have no premium, high-grade mint state examples preserved without scratches or discoloration can be worth several dollars, and certain dramatic error types may be valued significantly higher. Altogether, the inscriptions United States of America, 1 cent, In God We Trust, Liberty, and E pluribus unum on the 1999 D penny combine to reflect the United States' national ideals, political unity, historical traditions, and the enduring cultural significance of Abraham Lincoln, demonstrating how even a coin so small and common carries layers of symbolism spanning more than a century of American history.